I'm not going to lie. I want to be very transparent. Cover letters are good, right? But I'd rather look at your resume and see exactly what is there. Resume is a huge part of, in a way, to basically help yourself get into any kind of industry. It's basically selling yourself on a piece of paper. You can kind of tell exactly like if the person is really truly being genuine when they're having the interview process. The polished look is a very important thing. It makes it look like you actually want to have the job and want to be there, but also just the way you talk and the way you handle yourself.
Thank you very much for joining me in today's episode of OysterLink's podcast. For the beginning, would you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Sure. My name is Carolina Franco. I am the Director of Human Resources here at the Renaissance Times Square. I have been in the hospitality industry about almost 10 plus years. I started my career with Marriott, then went to HEI, and then from there went to Hilton. Now I'm currently in the heart and the center of New York City. So I'm in Times Square. We have an impeccable view here. We basically can see the ball drop during New Year's, which is amazing. So yeah, it's a pretty spectacular building to be part of.
So you can definitely post those, oh, my office view is better than yours.
Yeah. So we have an amazing view. On the fourth floor, it is absolutely stunning. It's panoramic. So we have all glass in the restaurant, which is gorgeous. And sometimes, we try to escape and we'll go over there just to be part of the hustle and the rumble and stuff. It's amazing just to see the New York City taxis drive by and you can see all the tourists. So it's really nice.
OysterLink is a completely remote setting, so my view is my living room. However, that has its own perks because when I go to Barcelona or some other place, I'm overlooking the beach and still doing my work. But yeah, New York is something special. Okay, so thank you. Did you always know that you're gonna end up in the hospitality industry, or was it more like spur of the moment before choosing what you're going to study, actually?
No, I did not think I would be in hospitality. I went to school originally for medical billing and coding, so I do have my associates in that. But then I went back to school for hospitality management, so I got my degree in that. I like to consider myself a Marriott baby. My mom's been with Marriott for a very long time. She's been there 25 plus years now. So I kind of grew up in the hotel setting. So it's amazing to kind of be able to be part of it now. And I really didn't think that I would end up here, but I'm excited and happy that I did because it's a great industry. You have an amazing opportunity to have really a lot of growth. And it also helps you kind of open doors to other departments that you don't know what you want to kind of touch base on. So it's really nice.
Wow. Okay. So the hospitality runs in the family. That's something you didn't disclose when we initially started the chat. That's great. Is your mom in the same line of work or does she do something else?
My mom works for the St. Regis, so she's a senior operations manager there. She started off as a housekeeper and worked her way up. So she's one of my biggest role models and my inspiration. And I always tell her, one day I'm going to be better than you. And that is my goal, So, and she knows it. And she's a big supporter of mine. She's always telling me, to push myself to the limit. And basically, I did kind of the same thing. I started off as a front desk agent. I opened the Courtyard in Chelsea. So from there, I worked my way up and I went into the operations, being the operations manager. And from there, I was with IHG in Jersey City. I became an operations manager there as well. And then from there, worked my way up and I went to Hilton to try a different brand, which it was a wonderful experience because they were the ones who were able to open the door for me into human resources. And from there, here I am.
So you are kind of like the perfect person to talk about all these subjects that we want to cover today because you were once someone who wanted to get a job and progress in their career, and now you're the one who's making the decision. So let's start with a simple question. How difficult is it to actually get an entry job in hospitality? And what would be your top tips for someone who's just starting out?
I don't believe it's very challenging. It all depends on what you want to apply for. So my thing from as an HR's perspective, what I look for, especially for a front desk agent, let's say, I'm looking for your customer service skills. How long have you been in an industry that it exposes you to talking to a lot of people? As a night auditor, if you have like a banking experience, it's great because you are touching base into finance. So it is easier. My biggest thing that I like to do is I like to assist people with their resumes. Resumes is a huge part of in a way to basically help yourself get into any kind of industry. It's basically selling yourself on a piece of paper. But the more details that you have on it, I think is the best thing. That's the one thing that I'm always constantly looking for whenever I'm going to do any hiring process.
Okay, so now you said that you're looking for details. Some time ago, there was a rule that your CV or resume shouldn't exceed one page.
One page.
Yeah. So is that rule out the window?
So now there's so many forms of ways that you can actually change your resume, and it's still very detail oriented. One of the biggest companies that I work with is Canva for when I'm going to assist someone making their resume. With that, it's good because it splits the information correctly that you can still put your skills and the languages that you speak, but then you still put enough details on the side for each one of your jobs. I always recommend to just keep it at a one page if possible, but using that template assists a lot because you can really condense it, but still give enough information to say, at least for each job, put 4 lines of things that you've done, but in your skills, add everything there as well. And it goes a long way.
Okay, amazing. So let's say that we got the interview part. Are you big on cover letters? Is that still a requirement in the industry, or is it something employers should avoid with the new generation that's coming?
Honestly, I think now that I am part of a newer generation than before, cover letters are good, right? But I usually tend to skim through it. I'm not gonna lie. I want to be very transparent. I'd rather look at your resume and see exactly what is there and make sure that all that information is accurate. So, part of HEI's culture here, we do have to do reference checks. And when we do reference checks, it's nice because we're able to actually hear from another person's perspective how amazing this person was, right? And that helps. So when we're at the interview process, we're able to connect on a different level. I think the reference checks for me is an amazing tool because I'm able to connect with the person and say, your previous manager said this about you, or whatever the case may be. It's great to hear it from another person saying that that is actually very accurate and very true.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that because it's been a hot topic amongst our users. How do I write a, good cover letter? It's like my motivation is to get a job and pay my bills. So yeah, I just wanted to clear that out for our audience. Okay, great. So we've got those covered. So now let's say coming into an interview, I have spoken to several restaurant managers, several general managers that all said that how you look and how you present yourself in the interview is very important. So what is your perspective on that?
I think the polished look is a very important thing. It makes it look like you actually want to have the job and want to be there because you took the time to present yourself and put yourself in a better, come in looking better and things like that. I think it's extremely important. But also just the way you talk and the way you handle yourself as well. It's very important to me. I like to have more of an informal conversation. I'll ask you questions, but I'm still writing notes and still talking to you at the same time. I think eye contact is a huge thing as well, because you can kind of tell exactly like if the person is really truly being genuine when they're having the interview process. Because we're making time for you to come in, and then especially if you are going to be part of our team, we obviously want to get to know you on a one-on-one basis. And I feel like the interview is kind of like that first round.
Other than kind of like looking polished and, taking care of your body language, are there any tips or like tricky questions that you might want to reveal for our audience? For example, the famous, "Oh, how are you?" And the people just say, "Okay, I'm good, thank you," and you. Something about those ones.
I think the handshake is very important. Your firm handshake when you first meet someone, I think is very important. Also, my biggest question is, what would someone say about you? So I'll say, like, is it like a best friend or a manager to describe you? Because I like to see what their perspective is about themselves. And with the reference check, that also crosses it and it helps, right? That is one of the biggest questions that I ask. Also, I like to use the STAR method. So it's the situation, the task, and how you're going to react, the action, and the response. I think is very important. And I always try to when I mentor my newer managers, that is the one thing that I always tell them that they should have in their back of their mind when they're interviewing, if they actually hit all of those four letters. If that was the case, then that's great. Then it was a great interview. And I always ask them for their feedback and think, okay, what is it that they could have said that was better, or whatever the case may be. And I honestly have been getting a lot of people questioning, like, their feedback. They want to know how come they didn't get the job and things like that. And that's always amazing. I like to have that opportunity with them, so that way I can help them. If they didn't get the job with me, at least in the next interview process, they knew what to improve on.
You're so kind. I wish that more hiring managers were like you are, because so many times in the past I was left, without any feedback. And I was like, what did I do wrong? I hit all the spots perfectly. The interviews went good, and then it's just complete silence. So thank you for breaking the stereotype on the recruitment side. So let me now ask a little bit from the employer side, actually. How hard is it to get a good candidate? Like, let's say for a director of operations or director of housekeeping or a front desk agent, how many resumes on average do you have to scan through to find your interviews to find your perfect match?
So currently we have a couple of job opportunities open. It all depends on honestly where is it being posted as well. I think a lot of people just tend to just apply just to see what is out there. Um, but it's a little bit of a struggle. We skim through. I have a coordinator who's part of my team, so both myself and her are constantly going through. I want to say an average of like 80 resumes per day. It's a lot of resumes, especially for entry level. It's a little bit more challenging because we're going through a lot more resumes. When it comes down to directors and management, is a little bit more trickier. It's a little bit more difficult. Those will go through about 30 to 40 a day, half of them. But we're constantly looking at what's their experience, the length of how long they've been working. That's one of the biggest things that we're constantly looking at, because we want someone who's going to be here with us for a long time. And then also we want to see what was their growth, because if there's a way that I can assist you in being a better manager, or if you want to grow into the industry and there's another opportunity that I have out there that can help you, I'm going to try to help mentor you and go up. My thing is, I want everybody to be able to grow. Career development is a huge asset for me.
Wow. Okay, that's so beautiful. So you just mentioned that the length of employment is quite important. And we know that this industry is at best a little bit hectic. So how do you handle if people, let's say, went into a restaurant or a hotel and stayed for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months, but then figured out the atmosphere was super toxic. They were not getting paid enough. Is that like a big no-go, or how could a candidate best explain to you why they left their previous position?
For me, it's at least to have a minimum of 6 months is very important at a job. And then if there is a moment that I'll see, that their resume is amazing, but there was like a short time in a certain location, I tend to want to ask. So I'll phone screen before coming in to have a one-on-one interview with me. And during that process, I'll ask them, what took place and see if they'll open up and let me know. Because I don't ever want to not give that person an opportunity because of something that took place previously that wasn't really out of their control. So if the culture itself wasn't good in their previous employer, I can't hold that against them. So I always try to give everybody the fair opportunity.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Now let's talk a little bit about career progression. As someone who had such an amazing role model, and then you have a pretty impressive track record, um, we have, or actually, I'm encountering when talking to young generations, this, oh, I want to be a director, I want to be a manager straight after school. Now we know that normally things don't work out that way.
Yeah.
So, what would be I don't want to say a timeline, but an approximation, of like the time that you could actually, wait for your first promotion, assuming that you're really performing good in your job.
So, for me, my first promotion was within 2 years of working as a front desk agent. I think that's basically the first part of where it should be for someone who is in the entry level as a manager. So from here, for front desk agent or for someone who's worked in food and beverage operations is their next step, and then they work their way up. A lot of places that I've worked in, they don't really have supervisors anymore. So that's exactly where you're going to be, which is good because I feel like operations management assists you into being exposed to so many other departments that you started off as a front desk agent, but then you're in housekeeping. You're like, wait, I kind of like housekeeping. Maybe I want to stay here and work my way up that way. So that is something that I always recommend for someone to do. And it usually takes about 2 to 3 years for sure. Fresh out of school does assist in a certain way, but it always is you're always going to start off as an entry. And I want to give yourself a realistic timeline of at least 5 years for you to get to the management, higher level, department head, director level.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So I do also have a question that's kind of the struggle of a lot of establishment nowadays, and that's that Gen Z doesn't really want to work in the hospitality industry. So Mr. Selim Soliman, who is the VP of Shiner Hotels, told me that his technique for, attracting younger people is actually showcasing them the career path. What would be your go-to strategy to attract young generations and young people to the hospitality?
So, in my previous location and here, I have gray and seasonal managers. So they're definitely part of the Gen Z. But what we tell them, especially, I have two front office managers that are amazing. And for them, now they're being exposed to other departments. And I tell them, I said, this is your career development plan for you. This is great. This is exactly what you need, and where you're going to be going is phenomenal because you're going to be heading up. That's literally, you're climbing up the ladder. It is perfect. And that was a great way to be able to assist them to open up their eyes. When I was working at Hilton, they have amazing programs as well where they were assisting people with career development and then giving them the opportunity to have a plan that they can build with their department head, which is great because department head can become their mentor. They can take the time to cross train and to do things, which was great. For me, thanks to the director of HR there, he was able to assist me and I was able to cross train from the front office and go into human resources. So that is exactly what I want to do. I want to emulate the same thing for this new generation because I feel like if we show them how the path is and how it's easily accomplished, but you have to put your hard work part of it, the sky's the limit.
Can a candidate actually recognize a green flag workplace? When I come and interview, like, what should be my triggers? Oh, this is a nice place. I want to work here. How can they recognize?
So I tend to do a lot of my research before I go to apply anywhere. So I look at the surveys, I look at the reviews, if there's anything available out there that it's like a resource, and I try to see exactly what is it that has taken place, if anything has taken place. And then another thing that I do is just the environment of when you walk in. I feel like everybody can kind of feel it. When I came in to interview a couple of places, I can tell you if like the front desk doesn't really greet you, they don't really have a good dynamic for me there. That's kind of like, ooh, that's kind of a red flag, right? But if everybody's very welcoming and loving, and then especially when you're greeting the manager that is going to interview you and they're very in the positive side, then that means, okay, this area has good culture. And that is a huge, huge thing that everybody looks for now. I know that whenever I ask a candidate, do you have any questions for me? They always ask me, what's the culture like in the hotel? What is the culture for the company? And here with us at HEI, we have a loves culture, which is amazing. And what we do with it is, we'll have a community service, and we will celebrate, diversity and inclusion. And we always have town halls, which we include everybody in. So that's our culture. So that's how I tend to also talk about it while during the interview process, or whenever someone was to ask me a question about it.
Okay, amazing. Thank you for sharing that, because it's very important. All of us have made, probably all or most of us have made the mistakes of just, going for, oh, this is a great offer, and then ending up crying at your therapist's couch. Okay, so one last question is, what would be the one thing you wish you knew before starting in the hospitality industry?
I wish I knew about it before. Honestly, if I could start over and just go straight into hospitality, I definitely would want to do that. For me, I was a little bit delayed after school, and I went back into to get my degree for it. But I wish I knew about it more in advance and actually really listen to what was really out there, when they actually talk to you during college fairs and things like that, because the hospitality industry opens so many doors for you. And even you don't have to only stay in hotels. You can go into a restaurant, you can go into like a med spa, you can do so many things that it opens so many doors for you. And even if you don't want to stay within the location and you want to work at corporate or do any of those things as well, it's absolutely amazing because it paves the way for you. So that would have been one thing that I wish I knew just to have started earlier. And I wish I just listened to my mom earlier than anything else. Because she was so adamant about, telling me that this was a good career path because of my customer service skills. And I just wanted to do something that was a lot easier, but actually it wasn't bad. It was actually a great career path. In 10 years, I'm a director. So I think I did pretty well for myself.
I think that you did pretty well. And weren't we all at that point in our lives when we said, oh, I wish I listened to my mother?
You have to be honest, And she would be like, yes, you should have listened to me.
I think that it feels pretty good for them. But anyway, we're here to kind of like rectify and try to be the younger mentors to the younger generations as well, because sometimes it's hard to listen when the advice is coming from someone who actually gave you birth. And it's a little bit easier when it's coming from a friendly face or two in this situation. So thank you very much for joining me today. And thank you for sharing all of your tips with our audience.
Of course. Thank you so much for this opportunity.